Things have become too gripping. I'm going to continue reading. Night fell, and a new moon, having risen early, showed its thin yellow crescent now declining in the west. The oak leaves pattered, and with the shifting night breeze came a faint sound of the town hall clock as it struck 8. A dim red glow, as always, lit the sky above the dump, and the sounds of an evening, ascending one by one, merged in a general hum and clamour. The carousel played its cracked waltz on the rats midway. The gambling booths, the gambling dens, and dance halls came noisily to life, then disappeared with all their mingled voice into the lonesome wail and rumble of a passing freight. Above the tracks, the green and red lights on a gantry clicked and changed. The engine's headlights slid along the shining rails, picked out leaf and branch and dollhouse where the boss of the dump still placed his tower. The sound grew in the train, as car by clanking car its passage shook the pole and set the dollhouse haltering on the platform. Clacking through the switches went the boxcars, rumbling on until the yellow-windowed caboose with its red lantern dwindled into darkness. The gantry blinked its changes. The train was gone, and the edge of the cricket song and silence stayed behind for a minute in the small and smaller clacking of the rails. Then the clacked waltz and the carousel returned, the dancing halls thumping wine, and the distant cries of pitchmen and of vendors in the alleyways and tunnels. By the starlight and the slender moon they could see nothing clearly. I've dislodged my perfectly parted hair. By starlight the little slender moon they could see nothing clearly, but the little group of the oak tree could hear the guards keep watch and the steady thump and shuffle as they walked the platform. Several of the off-duty rats lifted their voices in bawdy song, and 2 of the servants were squealing insults at each other in dispute over some mouldy cheese. Father and son listened carefully, focusing their complete attention on every sound in an effort to extract the information that would give them a plan of attack. There was a clink and rattle in the weeds at the bottom of the pole. Someone had stubbed his toe on something, and was cursing softly. "Who's that?" challenged Manny Rat. "It's me, Iggy," answered his lieutenant. A string ladder rustled as it was let down, and the invisible Iggy climbed up to the platform. A muttered conversation ensued, too low to be audible, and then Manny Rat was heard again, berating his subordinate for his failure to find the fallen wind-up supported by the blue jay. The ladder shook again as Iggy descended. They heard him moving about in the weeds, and the unmistakable sound of spring motors being wound up. The forage squad, the collective clockwork set in motion, receded into the distance with Iggy. "Who's that passing in the night?" "Foragers," for Manny Rat. "We grab first and we hold tight." "Foragers," for Manny Rat. There was a period of silence in the oak tree. Then the father spoke. "I think a sign has been given to us," he said. "What?" asked the child. "The same one that had been given to us all along," said the father. "The last visible dog. It's back!" "On the label of... Where?" asked the child. "On the label of Manny Rat's spare parts can," said the father. "I'm certain that's what rattled in the weeds when Iggy stubbed his toe. In that can we can find the equipment necessary both for fighting Manny Rat and for self-winding. Now all we need is a plan." "I think I have a plan," said the child. "Did you hear a bobbing sound on the platform when the train went by?" "Yes," said the father. "What about it?" "Manny Rat repaired the house and painted it and put it on top of the pole," said the child. "But there's one thing he hasn't done yet." "What's that?" asked the father. "He hasn't nailed it down," said the mousetrap. The moon had set, and Manny Rat's guests were due to arrive soon. The boss of the dump, awaiting them on the tower in his beautiful new house, stopped his pacing abruptly. Against the background uproar of the dump and racket of servants and off-duty guards, he had become suddenly aware of some unidentifiable sound that was quite close and unspeakably eerie. He strained to hear it again, but it was gone. Manny Rat thought about the horrid sound many times that evening, and when he did, he shivered. It was only much later that he came to know what he had heard. It was the combined hilarity of a kingfisher, a bittern, a frog, above which rose a peculiar creaking, squeaking, rattling noise of laughing tin. Chapter 8. Manny Rat's housewarming was a great success. He had invited the cream of rat society, and all of them attended, twittering and squeaking with high spirits as they climbed the string ladder to the dollhouse. Grizzled old fighters and their plump, respectable wives touched whiskers with gentlemen rats grown sleek by cunning, and lithe young beauties of vaguely theatrical connection. Debutante rats and dashing young rats about town, all the golden youth of the dump, arrived in little laughing groups that achieved an effect of brilliance even in the dark, while doddering dowager rats came escorted by gaunt autistic rats with matted fur, burning eyes and enormous appetites. Last up the ladder were a scattering of selected social climbers, followed by various hired bravos, obscure ruffians, and cheap hustlers whose goodwill was worth cultivating. The hungry guests made a concerted rush for the garbage buffet, and the thirsty ones squealed with delight when they found the sherry bottle, which contents of which were a viscous mixture of the dredge of many bottle. Several of the rats eagerly manned the erector set crane, and the punch was swung onto the platform, and the housewarming got underway very quickly. As much as Many Rat had looked forward to his party, he found his enjoyment flawed by a vague disquietude. It had begun when Iggy's failure to find the wind-ups dropped by the hawk had intensified with that unearthly laughter out in the night. Until now the boss of the dump was nervous and jumpy, and had the scant pleasure of his distinguished company assembled under his roof. Having mingled briefly with the guests, he took himself off to his watchtower and paced restlessly above the merriment and the noise. Beyond the platform quivered the darkness and the night, and Many Rat knew well that something waited for him there. Back and forth he paced upon the parapet, hearing in the rhythm of his footsteps the words the frog had spoken in the last winter's moonlight. A dog shall rise, a rat shall fall. The words were meaningless, he told himself. Undoubtedly it had been Frog's hope that future circumstances, leading themselves at random to the prophecy, should frighten him into a wrong move that would cause his downfall. Many Rat tried to put the thought out of his mind. There were no dogs rising now to threaten him, nor anything else he could see. He recalled the wild, weird laughter he had heard, and long and hard he looked into the night from the sound had come. There was nothing except the dark and rustling mass in the oak tree a few yards distant, nothing but leaves that whispered in the wind. Many Rat did not care for the whispering, and the breeze that stirred the leaves brought him undertones of sense that baffled and annoyed him. He became less and less happy with the oak tree, and he found he did not like to turn its back to it, and he strained into the darkness, watching and listening for he knew not what. He heard the draggled song of the returning forage squad, the sound of Iggy coming up the ladder, the creak and rattle of the crane that hoisted up the bags unloaded from the wind-ups. Below him in the house, the revelry continued rat style. In total darkness, its progress marked by shouts, giggles, playful bites, squeals of laughter, and boisterous song. But which Many Rat was listening for, he did not hear. He did not hear Frog's stealthy movements in the weeds as the spare parts can was put into the kingfisher's string bag and hauled up the oak tree. Nor did he hear the muffled flapping of the bittern's wings, as that bird, flying well out of spear range, landed on top of the hickory tree that overhung the dollhouse and lowered the bonzo dog can with Frog inside it. Dangling in his armoured gondola, the fortune teller removed the clothesline's pulley from its branch and silently departed with it. The active uncle made his next non-appearance on the railroad gantry that bridged the tracks, and later, when the midnight special passed the dump, and the white beam of its headlights showed the clothesline pulley hanging there below the semaphore and signal lights. All of this went on unknown to Many Rat, and the guards on duty, who having been sampled the punch, may have been somewhat less than fully alert. All the night, the boss of the dump walked in his tower, and thought long thoughts of rising dogs. Night was his daytime, and in the present state of mind he was coming dawn called it with bright and nameless dread. He thought of sunlight on those whispering leaves, and shuddered, cowering his eyes with his paws. So he did not see, low on the horizon, just before the dawn, the star that for the first time rose to trace its circle in the end of summer sky. And had he seen it, he would not have known its name. He who turned from sun and moon and stars alike. Sirius was he, the brightest star in all the heavens, that flashed with fire on the paling sky. Sirius, called the dog star, that steadily burned afar and looked down on the dollhouse and the dump. The party and the sherry bottle had lasted through the night, but both had reached the end of their resources in the dim mists of the morning. Most of the guests lay where they had fallen, replete with good cheer. A few of the gaunt artistic rats, their burning eyes still half open, prowled hopefully among the remains of the garbage buffet. Outside the house, a sleepy guard, the only one still on his post, looked on while some golden youth and maiden rats amused themselves, they seeing how close to the edge they could ride the elephant without falling off the platform. On his tower, Many Rat dozed fitfully, his head cradled in his paws. In the weeds below, the forage squad, their rusty tin and rotting plush still damp with night, stood and lay where Ikki had unloaded them. The dark horizon was suffused with light, and in the dump the voices of the night grew faint, passed into the silence and the dawn. The carousel was still, the gaming booths were shut. The sexton beetle snuffed out his candles, closed his show, and buried the fish head he had taken in that night. The little wizened vendor of orange peels and library paced, slowly made his way home, crunching over broken glass and leaving tracks in the ashes wet with dew. A train clanked sleepily on the track, stopped, started again, and pulled away toward the town. "What day is it?" chirped a frazzled sparrow to his wife. "What's the difference?" she replied. "It's the same as all others. Work, work, work." "It's a brand new day," said the chickadee. "Such a day. Don't be a fool," said the sparrow. "Morning came again," growled a distant rooster. "This dunghill's mine." "Morning," said the town clock. "For good or ill this day begins," and then it gravely struck the hour. The oak leaves were still whispering, but behind them now another sound is heard, a tiny rolling drumbeat, sharp with rage, growing louder, crying war. Out of the tree, his wild crest spiky with grim purpose, his wings fast flashing in the sun, burst the kingfisher. His rattling challenge rang on the startled ears of Matty Rat, but the boss of the dump had no eyes for the bird. Passing low over the watchtower, swinging and revolving at the end of a line held by the kingfisher, was the mouse child, with his nutshell drum. He and his father and the frog, racing desperately against time, had figured out the installation of clockwork. Now, equipped from spare parts can with a motor and a pair of red tin arms, he beat a rataplan both fierce and loud, for the little drum was newly headed with tin. The child's eyes briefly met the furious gaze of Matty Rat, but any fine and ringing words rehearsed for this moment had vanished from his mind. "Ya ya!" he yelled, and off he flew. Matty Rat leapt up, but not quite high enough, and fell back cursing. "Iggy!" he shrieked. "Guards!" The lone guard on the platform whirled and flung his spear, but the kingfisher dodged cleverly and let it whistle by him, then hauled up the child short and turned for a second pass over the dollhouse. The guard ran to the rack for another spear, but before he reached the bittern was upon him. His little yellow spectacled eyes blazing, a large rock clenched in his feet. "Oong bok chung!" The dollhouse echoed to the blows, and the guards lay on the platform, pounded nearly flat. The golden youths and maidens screamed and ran for the shelter. Matty Rat, half mad with rage, and almost gained the spear rack, when he turned and saw Kingfisher, who seemed all beak, coming at him like an arrow from a bow. He threw himself flat on the platform, felt the rush of fiercely beating wings, and received a resounding whack on the back of his head from the mouse child's 10 feet. "Arr!" said the child passionately. "Arr, territory!" and was gone again. Ooh, this is getting exciting. And it will continue to get exciting, because we're almost near the end. Oh goodness, I'm excited. And we'll continue this tomorrow for sure. In the meantime, Christy, sleep well, keep calm, find a llama. Well, let me get down here first. I was putting the book back. Sleep well, keep calm, find a llama. Oh gosh, find a llama. Carry on. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Good night, Christy. I love you.